All right, so we're going to talk about Predator: Badlands, directed by Dan Trachtenberg, who was also the guy behind Prey and the animated film Killer of Killers that came out earlier this year that I absolutely loved. I've had a very interesting week in that I've gone back and watched all of the Predator movies leading up to the release of Badlands. And the reason this was interesting for me, just to give you a little perspective of where I'm coming from, is that although I love the original Predator movie, the Arnold Schwarzenegger film, the first one, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's one of the best movies ever made, in my opinion. But as far as Predator as a franchise goes, I never really got into it the same way I got into something like Alien. Like, I'm a huge fan of the Alien franchise. I've followed, all the movies and television shows and video games and stuff like that, but I never really got into Predator the same way. I'd seen Predator 2 a bunch of times when I was younger, but all the others I'd seen once, and the Shane Black The Predator movie I watched for the first time this week. Badlands is much better than that. But the reason I say that is I think your enjoyment of Badlands really might come down to what you want out of this franchise or how big of a fan of it you are, because this is the movie that takes an approach that I think a lot of people are interested in and have wanted to see for quite some time. And that is to do an entire movie with no humans and to make the Predator the main character. Our main character is a Predator, a Yautja, and they use the term Yautja throughout this entire film. It might be one of the first Predator movies to actually do that. He is our main character. His name is Dek, and his story is essentially that within his tribe, within his clan of Yautja, he is kind of the dismissed one. He is the runt of the litter. He maybe isn't as powerful or hasn't made as much of a name for himself as his brother has. And so he is currently in this point where he is at the risk of being kicked out of his clan, or even worse, just being killed by his own father because his dad thinks he's a little bitch. And so in order to avoid this, he is hoping to go to the most dangerous planet known and hunt down the most dangerous creature called the Callisk, which totally reminded me of something out of like Dungeons and Dragons Monster Manual. Like if you're ever flipping through, if you guys play D&D, I don't know, I'm a nerd, whatever. If you play D&D and you flip through the Monster Manual, you see creatures like this all the time. Totally remind me of something like that. But anyways, apparently it is the creature that the Predators avoid. And so he is going to go there and try to take its head, take its spine, bring it back to prove his worth, essentially. And also there may be some vengeance at play within his goal as well. So he goes onto this planet, and this entire planet is just filled to the brim with things that can kill you. The plants attack and try to kill you. The animals attack and try to kill you. Some of the vegetation is literally sharp like glass, and it will cut you. It's just like the most uninhabitable place you could possibly imagine, where everything is killing each other. It is like being in the middle of the jungle, being in the middle of, some of the most dangerous places, but with creatures and alien species that, we can't even conceive of here on our planet. So he's dropped in the middle of this environment, and he's going after the most dangerous creature that's here, and eventually runs into Elle Fanning's character, but I'll get to all that in a minute. That's just the general premise. That's the setup. That's the first 10 minutes. Now, what I've noticed, I haven't watched a lot of reviews, but I've seen a lot of positivity for this movie. I've seen a lot of praise on it on Twitter, on social media. A lot of people are hyping this movie up a lot. And I do want to say this before I break down and tell you everything that I want to say about it. Just in general, just so you get my opinion, I do like this movie. I do think this is a good movie, but I'm not over the moon about it. I don't love it, and I didn't like it as much as I wanted to like it. And I do have several gripes with this film. Now, having said that, this is way better than The Predator. This is way better than AVP Requiem. This is a very fun movie, and it's a very well-made movie. It has great action sequences. It has great spectacle. It even has some humor that really worked for me. But I think it's going to depend on your sensibilities and what you want out of a Predator movie. So, in general, I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. But it isn't really necessarily my cup of tea, and I'll try to get into my reasons why. But here's what I do really like about it. Now, let's be honest. I'm somebody that can be pretty critical of CGI in movies. I love my practical effects and all that stuff. And since we're dealing with a CGI character the entire film, is this a problem? I'll say this. I think that the motion capture and the actor that plays the main Predator character, I'm not sure his name, But all of the motion capture and all of the performance that you get out of the Predator, I think actually works really, really well. I think with what they were attempting to do to make a Predator the lead character and to follow him and to get emotionally invested in his story, to understand where he comes from, his relationship dynamic with his father, his brother, his mission of what he's attempting to do on this planet, the fact that he is the underdog. This is an underdog story, you know, it is, where he's trying to prove his worth and everything. So in a way, it is similar to Prey, that Dan Trachtenberg also directed, where you have a character that is going through a journey, obstacles, trials, tribulations in order to try to prove their worth, you know, but ultimately find something within themselves along the way, right? So it is kind of a similar story, just from like the alternate perspective. Now we are following a Yautja. And so, you know, for that, I think that the motion capture, the CGI, I think worked really well. I also think there is a lot of creativity with the creatures on this planet. So, you know, again, I'm somebody that loves movies like, you know, King Kong and Skull Island and, you know, the Godzilla films and stuff like that. So anytime you give me a really interesting, unique creature design, something that you're not so used to seeing, I love that kind of shit. And this planet is filled with it. Like, some of it is basic. Some of it just feels like vines that are coming down and attacking. But you also have, you know, intelligent beings on this planet, like intelligent creatures that are not intelligent in the way of like humans and the Yautjas, but like, you know, you have things that can observe, you have things that can learn, you have things that can be tamed, you know, you have creatures with a head on their shoulders to the point where like they can recognize patterns, or that they can, you know, sense things within you, or maybe other creatures that you've been around by scent or by, you know, anything like that. So there is a lot of uniqueness to the amount of creatures that are on this planet. And I really loved all of the scenes where we got to explore the planet. I think a lot of that happens in the first half, and I'm much more of a fan of the first half of this movie than the second half. But the first half of really getting to learn this planet and get to see all of these different creatures and how the plant life attacks you, and the like weird rhinoceros thing that like opens its snout up. There is a lot of really cool alien species in this movie, and I definitely appreciated it for that. Also, I do want to say I have seen some criticisms of this movie being PG-13. But let me assure you that that really just comes down to the fact that there's no human death in this movie. So there are androids in this movie that are associated with Weyland-Yutani, and I'll get into that in a second. But, you know, the reason movies are rated R usually for intense violence, sexual scenes, and a lot of bad language. Well, I hate to break it to you, there's no Yautja sex in the movie, so that's out. And there's no language that's bad, because the Yautja is speaking its own language the whole movie, and it's subtitled. And you have Elle Fanning, who is an android that does not speak in obscenities, because we have yet to see an android that does, associated with Weyland-Yutani. So language is out. So the only thing that's left is violence. Well, there is lots of violence in this movie, but none of it is towards humans. So you either see alien creatures getting ripped open, and their blood can be a variety of different colors. You know, a lot of the reason the MPAA rates movies rated R when it comes to violence is because the amount of bloodshed, the amount of red. You know, I was just rewatching From Dusk Till Dawn the other day, and in the commentary, Tarantino says the reason we made the vampire blood green is so that they wouldn't censor as much of the movie. And that's kind of the truth. So the less red you have in there, the better you'll do. And there's lots of android death. Like there's human actors, but they're playing androids, and so they're getting ripped apart, and it keeps the consistency and continuity with what we've seen in the Alien movies. So all the androids have like white, you know, lubrication inside of them. So that's what we see for blood. So there's no red. So I think that it being PG-13 is not as big a deal as it may seem on the surface. But yes, we do have a human-esque character, a human actor in the movie with Elle Fanning. And I've always thought she was great. I always thought she was way better than her sister, Dakota Fanning. I always thought Elle Fanning was like the one that should have been the main star of so many movies, you know. She's great. You know, she plays the role that she needs to in this movie. The Predator finds her, and she's been cut in half by some of the creatures that exist on this planet. And since she's aware of the planet, she's aware of the things that are here, and she also can lead Dek to the creature that he's actually trying to take down. Dek decides to bring her along, basically using her as as a tool. So that's how he views her at first. He recognizes that she's not organic and that she's going to be useful in the sense of like letting him know about the environment. And so he brings her along, but she is basically how do I want to say this? She's the comic relief of the movie, and she's also the heart of the movie, because she's kind of like how the audience is going to relate to Deck and ask Deck the right questions and say the things to him that need to be said, or say the things that the audience is thinking. Like she basically is the vessel for the audience and also the exposition machine. And I use the word machine literally because she is a machine. That's what she's there for. And I think Elle Fanning as an actress does that exactly 100%. What the movie needs her for, she does phenomenally. Do I think that actually works for me? Is that the type of character I want to see? Not necessarily, but she does such an amazing job in what she's supposed to do that I have no problems with her performance in the sense of her performance. Also, for any of my fellow Alien fans out there that are curious, so the only thing in this movie that relates to Alien is the fact that these synthetics are from Weyland-Yutani. They have found this planet, and they are also here to grab one of the creatures for their bioweapons division. So it's the same idea. It's the same premise about, why they always wanted the xenomorph and everything. They're just here for a different creature. I am told that this movie takes place farther into the future. So Dan Trachtenberg, I saw like a TikTok interview with him or whatever, and he was saying that this takes place even after Alien Resurrection. So this does not, mess with any of the Alien continuity or knowing that there's other alien species and stuff. That it's far enough in the future where it can work. And also, no, they do not mention xenomorphs. They don't mention Alien. Nothing from the Alien films is brought up or addressed or talked about. The only thing that's going on here is that the company Weyland-Yutani is directly referenced and directly shown, and the synthetics are on this planet because it's too dangerous for humans, and they're here to capture a species and bring it back with them. That is the extent of adding in the alien lore. But the fact that we do add in alien lore adds to the flavor of when are they going to cross over Alien versus Predator again, if they ever are. And this gives them the opportunity to do that. What I also find funny is that after watching through the Predator movies, I think it is funny how the Predator films are always very inclusive to the Alien franchise. Like, you see the Alien Xenomorph skull in Predator 2, and then the Alien versus Predator movies can work in continuity way better in the Predator franchise than they could in the Alien franchise if you wanted to try to fit them in. But and then this movie now directly references Weyland-Yutani. But what's funny is if you watch the Alien franchise, they don't seem to give a shit about Predator. They never reference Predator once, other than like the Alien versus Predator movies, which are like their own thing. So it's just kind of funny how Predator is always like, even in their title, even the title like Predators, for that movie, like there's so many references to the Alien franchise in the Predator movies, but in the Alien franchise, they're just like, nah, like we don't care. And for my last big positive, what I want to say is that I am glad that a movie like this exists, because I think in a franchise that has lasted this long and now has so many movies, I think variety is good. I think that's the thing that keeps it fresh, it keeps it interesting, and it allows us to see different perspectives of this universe. The idea of having a movie feature no humans and also have a Yautja be the main character is a great idea. It is. It's just legitimately a great idea. And so I like that a movie like this can exist. And this movie is definitely way more of an action movie than anything else. And so I think with what it's trying to do, it succeeds and it delivers. Having said that, though, I don't necessarily think that this movie worked for me as much as I wanted it to. There are other things that I liked about it that I mentioned, but I think after we get to like the midway point of the movie, I think it started to fall a little bit flat for me, and I kind of got tired of the premise. And I think a lot of that, for me personally, is the fact that this movie has like no horror elements whatsoever. And it doesn't really have a lot of suspense or terror or fear or I don't know the words I'm trying to describe. Like, for example, like because obviously The negative of having the Yautja as the main character is obviously we are going to humanize the Yautja and make him relatable enough, right? And so since we do that, the fear has to come from something else. And so at first, the fear was the unknown of this planet and this creature that he was going to hunt down. But about halfway through the movie, that abruptly shifts, and now our enemies, our antagonists, are the Weyland-Yutani soldiers that are just fodder for the Predator to kill off easily. And so what happens for me is that there was nothing to build up that like feeling in my gut of like, oh my God, what's going to happen? That feeling I had when the movie began, it started to dissipate once we kind of got rid of all of the threats. And when the threats became too humanized, and too like disposable, at that point, it kind of lost something for me. And then at the same time, as that's happening, you're building up more of the dynamic with Deck and Elle Fanning's character and their other little companion. And so there starts to be this like increased amount of humor and increased amount of camaraderie, and a little bit of that is fine. Like there's a scene where they're sitting around a bonfire and there's this little creature that is like imitating what the Predator is doing, and it's kind of cute, it's kind of funny, it made me laugh. But then that goes on and it continues, and you know, there's like comedic ways that he's disposing of the synthetics later on, and they're all like it's not done poorly. Like they're all moments to where you can see like the audience is meant to cheer and root on Deck doing what he's doing. But for me, I think it got to a point where I just didn't feel anything for what he was accomplishing at that point. Like I think back to the original Predator and Predator 2 and how scary those movies were, you know, when I was a kid. Like when I would see like the bodies hung upside down and skinned, I would just like be shivering, you know, I'd be terrified. Now, obviously this movie makes the Yautja the main character, so you're, you know, taking some of that away, but there was nothing in this movie that was scary. You know, there was nothing in this movie that was even remotely adjacent to the horror genre other than when he first arrives on the planet and you don't know what he's going to encounter. But then as soon as that ends, the rest of the movie becomes, you know, like an action spectacle and this underdog story of Deck proving himself and finding companions and, you know, facing down the real threat, which is the Weyland-Yutani. And it's like, and at that point, it does start to feel more like just a standard action movie, but with a Predator as the lead character. You know, it starts to feel a little bit more, I don't know, like a Marvel movie. It starts to feel, you know, very heroic, right? Like that's the kind of movie you're watching. You're watching a hero's journey. And in that, it succeeds, like I said. But when it comes to like my sensibilities personally, just my personal opinion, and like the stuff that I enjoyed about all of these Predator movies, like I said, I just watched all of them this week leading up to this one. I think this one has like some of the least of the things that I personally like about the franchise. But also, having said that, I cannot say that this movie was bad because it is legitimately fun and entertaining, and I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it. It's just not going to be ranked high on my list of Predator movies. And I feel like maybe that's going to be an unpopular opinion because some of the praise I'm seeing for this movie and people ranking up towards the top, I got to figure out my ranking. That'll be its own video. But this is more in the middle for me. I like the concept, and I'm glad that this movie exists because, like I said, variety is very, very important in franchises like this. Let's shake it up. Let's do something different. Let's try something unique. And I think this movie does that and succeeds. It's just not necessarily everything that I was looking for in a Predator movie. And I do want to like it more. Like, I want to join the hype train. You know what I mean? Especially after binging all these movies this week. But, you know, I got to be honest and just say, like, I enjoyed it. But that's about it. Anyways, guys, if you saw Predator Badlands, what do you think about it? Down below, leave all your thoughts and opinions. I feel like this is going to be a very divisive movie once it hits like the larger crowds. You know what I mean? I'm seeing a lot of praise for it now, but I feel like it's going to be very divisive. So we'll see what happens with that. Anyways, that means now, officially, I have seen all of the Predator movies. So expect a ranking video at some point in the near future. I'm also going to finish editing this, and then I'm going to immediately go watch Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. So expect a review for that soon too. As always, guys, thanks for watching. If you watched my whole Predator Yautja week on the channel, I super appreciate you. Thanks for sticking through it. And go ahead and like the video, comment, help it out in the algorithm. If you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I do have Patreon, channel memberships, all the social media links where you can follow me down below. Other than that, guys, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll talk to you next time.